He is risen. He is risen indeed.
Come on. Yes! 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 I did it!
It all began with bucket lists, my bucket list, and the commitment I made to the 40th high school reunion that I made when my high school had their 35th reunion. Warsaw is not close to Seattle, so if I was going to attend a reunion, it had to be a milestone. In 40 years, it was a good one, notwithstanding that God called me home. I have a bucket list of things I would like to do before God calls me home. One of those bucket list items is attending every single PAX, West, East, South, Unplugged, Australia. West is a natural because I live here in the Seattle area. I've been going to it ever since 2012. PAX South in San Antonio I accomplished in January of 2020 before COVID hit and before PAX decided to cancel all remaining Souths ever again. Of course, that may change one day. PAX East is in Boston, and that would be a great way to do it. It also would include a bucket list item of me driving on Interstate 90 from Puget Sound to Boston Harbor. And of course, that also means a revisit of Boston and its history. My 4th and 5th grades were in a town south of Boston, and as a history buff, I have always wanted to visit Boston as an adult to go along with the memories I had as a kid. PAX East is usually in early March, and driving Interstate 90 in early March would be a bit of a snow slog, and late winter weather across the plains would not be ideal driving conditions. When COVID changed things in 2021 and made PAX East in July, the drive became tempting again. Now, before PAX East changed to July, I had already started formulating a plan to drive to my 40th high school reunion on Interstate 90. After all, Warsaw, Indiana is about an hour south of I-90, which is close enough to be a part of a road trip. Ideally, this whole trip would be I-90, high school reunion, PAX East, and Boston history. If PAX East had been in August, along with the high school reunion, it would have been perfect. But PAX East 2022 was in April, and the high school reunion was in August. While PAX East wasn't happening, the other items could. Interstate 90 plus high school reunion plus Boston in August of 2022. Seattle to Warsaw to Boston, the road trip was on. And now it's day one. So this, I call it my Washington beer tour. The whole goal was to cross the state of Washington between here and Spokane Valley, where my first hotel is. Yes, it's only about 5 or 6 hours, and that's maybe I should have gone farther, but I had some extra time. When I was building this whole schedule out, my anchor point was August 20th, the high school reunion. So going backwards in time to different places and places I wanted to see, I had a little extra time. So why not do a Washington State brewery tour? Get on Interstate 90 and head east until Spokane Valley. But before we get started, we have to get a rental car. One of the things that was on my mind and kind of disconcerting to me was whether or not I actually got the car I wanted. I signed up for a Toyota Camry class car because after all, I have a Toyota Camry, and knowing that, I can then easily drive it as well as know all the safety features on it. So there you go. Let's go down to the budget rental car and see. My son picks me up, takes me down there, drops me off. It's a nice pleasant day talking with the lady. She is getting ready with all of my paperwork. And she's asking me, of course, what my plan is, because she sees I'm going from Seattle area to Boston. I mentioned I'm doing this road trip, and I'm even having 2 of my 4 kids ride with me in Chicago. And she goes, are they riding with you? I'm looking at first, wait a minute, are you going to charge me more for them riding with me? Oh, well, a Camaro won't work then. I'm like, okay. So in other words, you have no Camry. Because sorry, I have no Camry. So okay, well, we have Priuses, Corollas, and some other cars too. I'm like, well, Prius? That's a hybrid, so that's gas and electric, so maybe that's a way of doing things. But she reminded me of the fact that as a Prius is a hatchback, you can see into the cargo hold. If you're traveling across country, they can see you got, your luggage and other stuff. I go, okay, good point. Can I just go sit in the Corolla? I wanted to see if the Corolla had similar features. Because they're all Toyota. So I went inside the Corolla, and I'm looking at everything. Looks to be similar to my car. It's great. I don't know if they have the safety features on it, but cup holder a little bit different. So where are we going to deal with that? I don't know. So I was getting out of the car, and she's coming toward me. She says, "Oh, we actually have a Camry in the back. They have the key on the counter because it's being serviced, and so therefore you can have it." I go, "Oh, well, that's perfect then." It's black with red leather. I'm like, red leather, okay, fine, but I'm okay. This is great. So I waited for a little bit for it. They washed it, got it ready, and I got into the car, and I'm like, perfect. This is what I want. It's not the same model year, probably 1 year older because the defroster buttons were in a different spot, but everything else was the same. All the safety, all the Android apps, all the different things were the same, and so perfect. So I drive home, and then I sit in the driveway. I get ready. I get ready to get it all going, get everything set up correctly, getting the Android app, getting everything tuned correctly to make sure it's the car I want as I'm driving away. I don't want to do it on the road. Let's do it there. So then I start packing. I did a lot of preparation beforehand. I had everything taken care of. Just now it's got to put it in the car and get ready to go. And so there I am in the driveway, ready to go. Now comes the good parts, right? Driving Interstate 90 first off, getting to 90 meant me driving from my house to 90. Now, my original thought was I would actually start at the actual location 90 starts in Seattle, down by the baseball park for the Seattle Mariners. And of course, then maybe dip my toe into Puget Sound. Well, that location does not have a park or a way to dip your toe into Puget Sound, so I'm like, forget that. So I just basically drove from my house to I-90 at 405 location. So when I start my Interstate 90 road. He is risen. He is risen indeed. This is the official start. Because now I'm on Interstate 90. I only 2 videos, 2 VODs. That's why I stopped the other one. I'm now on Interstate 90 at exit 11. So I know, not exit 0, but exit 11. I'm on Interstate 90. Now I'm heading east. Yeah, so now on Interstate 90, part of the road trip. So I just wanted to say that, started off. Next stop is Ellensburg in Eastern Washington. Anyway, so I'm on my way. I'm heading toward Eastern Washington on Interstate 90. I'm listening to just the radio, different podcasts, and just like, okay, this is it. I can't believe it's actually happening. I'm on my way. First stop was Ellensburg. Yes, Cle Elum is there first, but I was going to go to Cle Elum later on next month in September with my friend Corey, and so therefore, no, I will skip. I already planned to go where I wanted to go because there's 3 breweries there, and 2 of them were closed when I arrived. So I went to the 3rd one. So I ended up going to Whipshaw Brewing, and that's where I got my beer and my first start point of this road trip. Next up after that, after all, I did get 3 stamps in Ellensburg. Head to Moses Lake. Moses Lake, I wanted to go to 10 Pen. I've drank their beer at the beer festival. I've got their beer from Safeway. I wanted to go see their place. Their website showed this beautiful building, and I arrived there, and I'm like, wait, what? That's not the building. What? Oh, wait. Oh, their tap room is a bowling alley, aka why it's called 10 Pen. I walk inside, and I'm like, okay. First thing I see is a person working a booth that is giving away prizes, because when you do the arcade stuff over to the right and you get the little tickets coming out, you can trade them in for prizes. Like, okay, well, I walked all the way in. Oh, and guess what? It's a bowling alley. Okay, but where's the food? Where's the tap room? I'm looking around, finally see where I think it is. I back up, I follow a pathway, I finally get to where I wanted to go. And so I'm there at the tap room, having a 10 Pen, having some fries just to tie myself over and go on from there. Beer is good. Location was not to be desired, in my opinion. So I got 2 stamps in Moses Lake. Next stop was Odessa. Now, Odessa is not on 90. But when you look at 90 across the state, you're like, okay, well, I can just go up north a little bit to Odessa. There's a brew place there. Let's check it out. So I'm heading there, and the map, of course, Google Maps says, well, open till 5 p.m. I'm like, wait, it won't be open till 5 p.m. on a Friday? Okay, well, okay. So I go there anyways, and it's a very small town of nothing really. It's like, I find the brewery, I think, or the place next to a grain silo, possibly. When I got the stamp, I don't really know if I actually found the place. I'm like, this was a waste. Was a waste. But okay, in my mind, got the stamp, move on. I have a story. Next stop was Cheney. So just a little bit south of 90 as you get closer to Spokane. A nice little place. It was a nice little side trip, okay? Nice little place, nice little downtown. This Inland Ale Works was there. Parked, went inside, got a hippie juice IPA. It was so-so. And I'm like, that was a nice little place, you know? Okay, cool. Did that. There's my next stamp, and now Spokane. Now, Spokane is a big area, land-wise. And, of course, it's like the second largest city in the state. Anyway, so Spokane Valley. There you go. Downtown. I'm going to go to Iron Goat. So I'm looking, where's parking? I drive around several times trying to find parking. Parking apparently is on the street, but you got to pay for it. I'm like, I don't want to pay for parking. But across the street, there's a spot where it's like, hey, you can park it for 2 hours. Like, okay. I'm not going to be there for more than 2 hours. So I parked there across the street, going to Iron Goat. Nice little place, okay? I loved it. Loved hanging out there. A bunch of people there doing stuff on a Friday evening. And it was also within range of other places. You know, when you're downtown like that, there's like 3 or 4 other places to get stamps. So I got about 4 stamps while I'm there, just sitting there during my time. And that was fun. Next stop was Spokane Valley. Now, this is where my hotel was going to be at, so I wanted to go by a brew place on the way. So I went to a place called Bardic Brewing. Now, I'm like, okay, the name caught me. It's in a little strip mall. That's not bad, okay? The corner, like, you know, strip malls tend to be like, it could be an angle. So in the corner one there is where it's at. So I went in. I love the name. I actually asked the guy, where did you get the name from? As soon as he started mentioning D&D, I'm like, okay, I know his story. And so yeah, Bard from the whole thing, the class you get from the D&D stuff. So that's why he named it. Perfect. Wonderful. I can tell it's a family business because I ordered a pizza. And when I ordered the pizza, he asked the lady over there, apparently his wife, because there were 2 kids over there too, come help make the pizza. Well, that's kind of cool. So here's a guy who's making a living, opened a brew place up, family endeavor. Pray they will successfully make it. Not everyone does, but COVID obviously is past now. So if they're here before COVID and they're still here, that's great. So it's kind of fun. It was fun to be there and hanging out with them. And then I went to my hotel room and I said, I'm done for the night. I think I streamed a little bit just because I wanted to get some things going and show what I'm doing, kind of a catch-up thing. And there you go. That was day 1. The Washington State Brewers Tour. That's why I'm wearing the Washington Beer Lovers shirt right now. Okay, see? Ha ha ha. Day 2. Exiting Washington took me an hour longer than I had planned to get 5 more Wobble beer stamps. I left the state with a total of 98. Day 2 was all about crossing Idaho and Montana to get myself to Billings. I did stop in Missoula beyond just taking a break. In my streams, I was told I should visit Draught Works Brewery, so I did. I told the person there behind the counter I was sent there by Austin James of the Warm Springs production, and he showed recognition of WSP, but not for Austin. It's a nice place and a good IPA. I made sandwiches for my lunch so I could eat along the way and not have to stop or eat, more junk food. I did stop at rest stops, but day 2 was all about getting across the state to Billings. Once I arrived in Billings, I checked into the hotel and thought about going out to get some food or beer, but decided to stay in and have some leftover pizza I got from Bardic the previous day. So basically, I arrived at the hotel and didn't leave. And I streamed a little bit. And that was day 2. Staying in Billings made it for an easy drive to the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument. When I arrived, it was a beautiful day, and I was surprised to see that there was a cemetery there similar to the Arlington National Cemetery, where you can bury your loved ones there. I love how the battlefield tells the story of both sides, both the Union and the Americans. The detail is amazing, especially of knowing exactly where people fell. The Sioux took their dead off the battlefield, so not much is known about where they actually fell. I think any of the Native American tombstones you see there are those who actually served and fought with the Union Army. The battlefield is so spread out over several miles that you have to have a plan to visit for some time. It is a beautiful sight. Rolling hills, the rivers, it's wonderful, okay? Leaving Little Bighorn, the next stop was Devil's Tower National Monument in Wyoming. I saw this when I was a kid, a teenager. Back in the day, a family road trip we took to the Northwest, and seeing it also in the 1978 Steven Spielberg movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a beautiful place with lots of ponderosa pines. Smell is wonderful, and I had to go hug a tree because I wanted to smell more. There were some folks climbing the tower, which is something I won't do without some kind of harness and safety features. I started walking around and quickly realized the views were pretty much the same what side it was on. It was pretty universal, pretty symmetrical around the whole thing. It was a great time. I could just stay there forever for a long time. Just beautiful, wonderful day, and the smells and all. But I had to go somewhere else because guess what? There was a trip to go to meet friends at Perkins for some dinner or lunch. It was lunch. Late dinner, early dinner. One of those two. You know, there are times when my social anxiety does come up, and one of my first social anxiety visits was coming up here in this road trip. While I've had some anxieties, along the way driving alone, meeting an online friend and fellow streamer with his family was a tad bit higher on the level of doses. Contact was made when I was leaving Devil's Tower, and the pre-planned site was still a go. Punching into Google Maps started me toward Perkins in Spearfish, South Dakota, just north of Sturgis. There I met Aki and his family. It was a fantastic time, and the food was good too. And oh my gosh, I had a blast. So that social anxiety was clearly gone, and I had no regrets in doing it. Now, being just north of Sturgis and the 82nd annual motorcycle rally was an opportunity I did not want to miss because it was ending that day. I had to go and check it out. The rally, I guess, apparently from August 5th to 14th, and arriving on the last day allowed me to see how the city was decked out with many tents, vendors, displays, and other stuff, making the city a total outdoor convention. Wow is all I can say as I was imagining all the bikes and the bikers that were there, what I'd missed. And when I was seeing it was just empty streets. Being in front of a store that appeared to open as the door was open, I went inside and bought a shirt. Guy running the store said they were technically closed and was packing up and his stuff and ready to go head out, but he still made the sale. Happening upon Sturgis was a fun and exciting time. Off at the hotel, I checked in and checked again on the Mount Rushmore at night sighting. 8 p.m. Mountain Time meant I had some time to get a brew first. So Mercressy was open until 7 p.m. So that gave me just the right time to get a beer and then head off to Mount Rushmore for the night showing. There was a nice flavor to a hot dripping double IPA. Mount Rushmore at night was a media show of the four presidents with the music playing to the grand lighting of the monument. After that, we all sang the national anthem, and they asked for those who were active as well as former service members come down front to help them lower the flag for the night. With that conclusion, I headed back to the hotel, and that ended day 3. Day 4 started off with me doing 15 minutes on elliptical. Might as well get some exercise in on this trip, right? So day 4 was basically staying in Rapid City, South Dakota, and visiting the several items on my list in the area. Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, Aerospace Museum, whatever else that pops up. So on my way to driving to Mount Rushmore, I passed through a town called Keystone, and oh boy, a town that was more touristy than I ever recall seeing anything touristy before. I even had to tell my mom, Estes Park is not as touristy as this place. It was interesting to go through it and take some pictures of it. So anyways, on the way to Mount Rushmore, I wanted to see things in daylight and of course also read a story behind it. I found out the monument was never finished. Never finished to the original plan they had, because several things happened in 1941. Well, first off, they noticed that some of the rock below Washington's head, where the plans were made to put his coat on, along with Jefferson and Lincoln's hands, was just not rock good enough for sculpting. As most of the funding came from the federal government, 1941 was a bit of a year where they cut funding because World War II was underway. And of course, lastly, 1941, Gutzon Borglum, the guy who behind everything, died. Now, even though his son Lincoln knew how to keep going forward, without his dad, the feeling was we should stop the work. Now, the park ranger did say, or how many people here are from out of state? Raise their hands. So it worked. The whole point of it was to bring you here and to view this and hear the story. And while it's not completed, you came, and guess what? They draw visitors every year and they tell the story of the 4 presidents. Leaving that money behind, it was time to head to another monument in the same area. This, of course, was Crazy Horse Memorial. The story also starts with one man and even a grander and longer ranging plan. Zach Zolowski and his family since 1948 have been working on this, and they're getting along. It plans for a 100-year plan, okay? So we're only like 20, 30 years into us, and there's 70 years more. The first 20 years, Korczak by himself did everything alone. He flattened the top of the mountain peak so you can start at the top of where the Crazy Horse's head is. Now there are folks working all the time on it, and you can see that they're working on the horse, the fingers pointing out, and they're working on the horse's head now. On the drive back, I intended to go back to Mount Rushmore one more time, hoping the weather was good, but all of a sudden, boom, a torrential downpour just... And I saw this brown sign, Train Museum. So guess what? I had to stop in. Hill City has a train museum, and it was a wonderful train city museum. Now, Hill City also happens to be the end of a leg of a train ride between Keystone and Hill City. There are lots of train artifacts, and the folks there were so nice in showing me around. I gotta film this, man. I am in a railroad museum in South Dakota. I mean, lots of wonderful artifacts. Caboose here, okay? The museum is next to a track for what's called the 1890 train ride. Rides. Yeah, from here to Keystone, which is outside Mount Rushmore, you know? Isn't that cool? There's a nice little engine of sorts. Not sure it's running or not, but look at that. I mean, isn't that cool? After trains came planes. The South Dakota Air and Space Museum is basically an outdoor display, and so when I came out of the car and started walking toward it, I had memories of Moscow, because Moscow, Russia, also has an outdoor museum of airplanes. So I had to go by there and take a look at the things, right? It happens to be next to Ellsworth Air Force Base, so the planes there, or the stuff there, tend to be pointing to things that happen to be at Ellsworth Air Force Base. Now, there was an indoor area, but it was closed. I'm done with all that stuff. I'm time for some food. Where should I eat? I like that brew place. Let's go back there again and go check out their food truck. And their food truck was great. It was called Sliders. I went out and got 2 sliders, and I came back for 2 more because they were so good and they were so worth it. And wow, what a fun time. And that was it. And end of the day with a stream.
Yeah.
I see Captain Crunch. I'm sorry. They gave me a commercial.
Now I do. I
See
see
Fortnite. What you see Darth Vader there?
There we go.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I see Darth Vader.
So I need to
We're
run
good now.
Fortnite first before I do. Oh, yes. Okay. So, hey, welcome back, everybody. And guess what? Okay, well, I will try to see chat through my phone, okay? All right, hang on a minute.
I'm guessing.
Okay, so we're not talking about NFTs
Thirsty
anymore. All right.
about.
You can.
Let's talk about pugs.
Let's see. Kennethan
Cute
is live.
Chinese pugs.
Okay, here's
I would
the
buy NFTs
chat.
of puppies and kittens.
Wait, where's
Is that
my
a thing?
chat?
Day 5 was going to be a long, flat drive to Iowa. I left early and made my first stop in Wall, South Dakota. I wanted to see Wall Drug. They made their fame in giving out free ice water to weary travelers before there was ever an Interstate 90. I knew it wouldn't be open when I arrived, and the street was definitely very deserted. I stopped here in my teens on a family road trip, so I was wanting to recapture a memory. There are photos of Wall Drug all over the world, indicating how far it was to get to Wall Drug. On the road to the Badlands National Park, Google Maps took me to an exit that made me question the app. There wasn't the normal brown sign saying National Park, this exit. Getting off and finding a gravel road made me very sus. I stopped and turned around. I didn't want to put extra wear and tear on a rental car, and back again on Interstate 90. Google Maps decided to recalculate and to the next exit. And guess what? There was a brown sign and a paved road. Again, I knew it was too early for the visitor center, but I wanted to see the Badlands and how bad they are. Wow, what a landscape. It looks like you're somewhere on some sci-fi movie. But I also got a national park map. Instead of getting back on Interstate 90, I went under the bridge to the Minuteman Museum. There were supposedly silos nearby, but the gate was closed and was not going to open soon, or even that day. I suspect COVID. Aki told me about a rest stop that I had to stop and rest at near Champlain, and it was amazing. The rest area features a museum about the Lewis and Clark expedition. There's a huge statue of a Native American woman named Dignity statue. This rest area overlooks the Missouri River, which makes the views awesome. Along the way in Minnesota, there was a rest area called the Blue Earth, and it's where Interstate 90's Golden Spike was driven in 1978. I didn't explore further to see if there is a section of road paved in gold, as the sign said. I actually got off the exit before the gold back on again, so I didn't cross it. The route to Father Ironheart's place was off Interstate 90 and through the back roads of Minnesota and Iowa. I rolled down the windows when I reached these towns driving 35 miles per hour just to get a sense of how they smell, and oh my gosh, some of the smells were amazing. I can't place what it was, but I just loved passing through them. I arrived to Ironheart's place in daylight, and I got a chance to meet the family. We all went to Toppling Goliath Brewing Company for some food and beer, and guess what? It was bingo night. I won twice. The first win was based on the last person with no bingo callouts. I won a free beer coupon. The other was an actual bingo. The bag of goodies had a hat that I gave to Ironheart's wife, a mug that I gave to Ironheart. Came with a magnet which I kept, and also well as a phone pop socket. After we got back to his place, Ironheart and I went for a walk around the falls near his place, and it was really nice to see some fireflies I haven't seen in a long time. What a fantastic day, and it was great to meet Ironheart in person and meet his wonderful family. Day 6 started off with me visiting Ironheart's church as a way to say goodbye and start my trip. This was having me go to Chicago O'Hare Airport to pick up my daughters, as well as meeting my old college roommate, Mike. Getting to O'Hare meant driving through rural Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois to get back on Interstate 90. Kim had the earlier flight, so she got picked up first. After picking her up, we headed to the hotel to check in and meet up with Mike. Mike met us at the hotel, and then we went off to have lunch at Twin Peaks. Kim and I thought, oh, this would be great. This is like a TV show themed restaurant, wasn't it? But it wasn't. I apologized to her, as the Twin Peaks is akin more to why they called the Grand Tetons their names. The conversation, food, and beer were good. After eating, went back to the hotel, and Mike and I sat in the hotel lobby for several hours just talking about old times and catching up on things before I had to say goodbye and go pick my daughter up, Ashley, from the airport. As we came back from the airport, one of the items we had on our list of things to do in Chicago was to eat pizza at Lou Malnati's, which just happened to have one location right near our hotel. Kim, Ashley, and I had a great pan of pizza. Say hello to being in the Chicago area. Day 7 was all Chicago. Mike offered, and we accepted, to have him chauffeur and be a tour guide of all things Chicago. Oh, look, there's a cemetery where Al Capone was buried at. Mike picked us up, and we were off. I know there was only 2 real things I wanted to see in Chicago: Wrigley Field and the Cloud Gate, also known as the Bean. Apparently, the sculptor does not like it being called the Bean. Not sure why. We made many stops where me and my daughter jumped out, took pictures, and got back in the car, or just waited till Mike drove around or he parked short term. So we saw Wrigley Field, Fort Dearborn, markers on the street and sidewalk next to the Chicago River. As well as Chicago River itself, Trump Tower, Chicago skyline, Michigan Avenue, also known as the Magnificent Mile, the Cloud Gate at Millennium Park, and we walked around for a bit there. We had lunch at Uno Pizza since Mike said it was better than Lou's. Both deep dish pizzas were very good. Apparently, though, there's another one even better. Oh, Giordano's? Saw the waterfront of Lake Michigan, though we didn't see much. There are so many cool neighborhoods in Chicago that Mike talked on, and we saw some of them. As a snack, we had a Chicago dog from the Hut, a favorite spot of Mike's. Chicago dogs, by the way, must be a Vienna beef. We said goodbye to Mike and thanked him profusely for taking us around. Me and the girls did a nightcap at a Redstone American Grill where we got bitten by mosquitoes, even though I didn't see them out. This was Kim's third time in Chicago since her fiance's family originally came from the area. It was Ashley's first time, and she expressed a desire to come back with her husband Aaron. I had forgotten how much I love Chicago, and I need to go back and visit again. Mike expressed a desire to road trip on US 66, Route 66, Chicago to LA sometime. I told him I would love to join him on that trip. Day 8 is all about the Kennethan. The Kennethan Historical Tour. These are the places from my life from 1975 to 1986 in Michigan and Indiana, 6th grade to college graduation. The order of the visit was not chronological. The order fit better our travel plans and timing of our trip. Left Chicago in the morning and headed south, east toward West Lafayette, Indiana, where my college alma mater, Purdue University, is located at. I graduated in 1986 from Purdue University with a degree in aeronautical and astronautical engineering with a job offer from Douglas Aircraft Company in Long Beach, California. This was a Friday, and there were many people on campus giving tours for new arrivals and giving tours for new freshmen coming in and all the kids moving into school, because guess what? School started Monday. It brought back memories of my moving day as a freshman and the emotions I felt in leaving home for the first time. After parking, we visited the Student Union, Grissom Hall, where back in '86 the Aero Department was located with the Industrial Engineers. Today the building is all IE, because Armstrong Hall, Neil Armstrong, is now where the Aero Department resides. Cary Quadrangle was my freshman dorm, my first year. There 3 years I lived in someplace else, did not get a picture of that. Visited Harry's Chocolate Shop, where I celebrated my 21st birthday with my biochem lab mates, and then we finished with lunch at 9 Irish Brothers. After lunch, after climbing up the hill, get to our car, kind of warm, ready for some air conditioning, the car wouldn't start. I'm like, this is where I sighed, not upset, frustrated, with my daughters. I mean, this is one of the things I thought about, right? Was it possible that my car would not start, I have a problem, and I might have to call up the rental car? But no. Guess what? I popped the hood. My oldest daughter noticed the dome light came on. I turned the car on oh. I got out, gently closed the hood, and we drove away. It happened again at the Indiana Dunes State Park. Pop the hood. Dome light comes on. Turn the car, starts. Off we go. Eventually we made it to Warsaw, and then on the morning of the reunion, I opened the hood, looked at it, did some adjustment with the battery terminals, kind of making it a little more tighter, and guess what? The problem went away. Purdue is very pedestrian and bike friendly today in 2022, much more than it was back in my time when I could drive on campus. I kind of like that. It's looked better these days, so it's kind of fun. Next up, after leaving Purdue, headed north to the Indiana Dunes State Park. I wanted the girls to see natural dunes from Lake Michigan. The day was sunny with a bit of heat, and the people who were there were enjoying the weather and the water. I figured if it was the weekend, the place would have been packed. Briefly leaving Indiana, we crossed into Michigan and headed to a small town that I lived in from 6th and 7th grade. Driving on an awful road full of pot marks to the old homestead, I was reminded of how I used to praise Michigan roads over Indiana roads. Now I think I might have been suckered into a false narrative, as maybe the roads in 75 to 77 were just newer. The roads are atrocious in 2022. I just think bad of Indiana, since when you cross the border, the roads were worse there than they were in Michigan. Driving to Glean proper felt like nothing has changed, with the town stuck in time. The school I went to stands there, but it's for sale. I read online that the school district has shut down. I'm blessed that my parents moved from there, even though at the time I never wanted to live in the Soviet Union or Indiana. We drove back into Indiana toward Notre Dame. My mom, my daughter's grandmother, got her PhD there in biochemistry in 1984. She graduated way through my college career, and my parents moved to California. Moving and orientation day happened also at Notre Dame, and since we was later in the day, we arrived at the end of it. We walked a bit on the campus and found the building where my mom finished her time there. It was not the building where I helped out in working in a biochem lab, cleaning lab equipment and taking care of mice. The Kennethan tour then headed south toward Warsaw. The actual Warsaw visit will happen tomorrow on day 9. So we checked in and got some food downtown at Mad Anthony Brewing Company. And so there we were, finally in Warsaw after how many years I've been gone. I left in 1984. My parents moved. I left Indiana 1986 after graduating from college. So 1984 was the last time I was in Warsaw. And oh boy, won't that be interesting tomorrow. The conclusion of the Kennethan historical tour in Warsaw Community High School class reunion of 82 happened on day 9. We drove by the house where I lived from 1977 to 1984, my old high school, which is now a middle school, the new high school, where we saw a marching band practicing on a Saturday morning, my old middle school, and of course my siblings' elementary school. I showed my daughters where I saw Star Wars back in 1977. It's now a private hotel for Zimmer Biomed, a large employer in the town, and their headquarters is on land that used to be my freshman high school. So many changes. We also stopped by the Presbyterian church I attended while in Warsaw, and I can see while it still says First Church, whoever it is not the same Presbyterian anymore. My daughter actually picked up some bug, not sure where, was not feeling well, and so she spent the rest of the afternoon and evening resting and sleeping. Kim and I had a beer at Ledgeview Brewing Company before I went to the high school reunion. The reunion itself was fun and eventful. One of my old high school friends unfortunately did not attend, even though he lives in the area. I met some new folks who were there as +1 to their classmates, and some folks who remembered me from school, whether from band or as being one of the smart kids. Well, I was only 22 at 382, so not the smartest. I won a first reunion Virgin Award, my first time being at a reunion, right? And I won the longest travel award. I came from Seattle to Warsaw, Indiana, so I traveled the farthest. Apparently there were 10 states that were there, or at least represented. I don't know which ones they were. Overall, it was fun. It was, missing the things you always hear about from class reunions, such as making old connections new. After Kim picked me up, we went off and had our last call. She told me that she's basically spent her time on her own without Ashley, kind of enjoying some other at Mad Anthony's Brewery. Good for her to do that. Very proud of her making that effort, even though she's doing it alone. And that was the end of Warsaw. Well, not end of it. Tomorrow, day 10, is when we leave Warsaw and head to Cleveland. Day 10. We started in Warsaw. Plan was to go to Cleveland. Of course, then in the end of that day, I'd been King of Prussia with J-Cube. Ashley felt much better, thank God. And so it made me feel better knowing she was good for the drive from Warsaw to Cleveland. The goal for Cleveland was to visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I did some research before we went. I saw where it was at, saw the map, saw where the parking's at. I saw all I needed to know about going there and making sure that things would go smoothly. Hey, Google Maps is good for a lot of things, and I got a feel for the area. We drove downtown, and things started looking rather barren, which of course reminded me was a Sunday. And I'm also reminded me of a business trip I took into Cleveland about a decade ago. In other words, a normal day. But this Sunday was not a normal day. As we approached the museum and its parking, we saw lots of Browns fans, and I noticed the stadium right next door to the parking, which was closed for Browns fans. When I did the Google Maps, I didn't notice the Brown Stadium was right next door. As we wandered around trying to find the parking, I asked the guy, where can we park, since the museum parking is right there? And he said, you gotta go back up town a little bit and walk to the museum. I'm like, okay, fine. So as we head back up, we started seeing some street parking, not really. Other parking like $40, then $30, and $20. Said it wasn't worth it. And with Ashley still feeling kind of poor, let's just go and have some food before taking to the airport. So as we kept driving further away, all of a sudden, the pricing of the parking was $40. I'm like, what the heck? Then I realized we hit the baseball stadium, and Sunday baseball and football on the same day. Browns and Guardians playing. No Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But what a great story. We did lunch at Kennethan Tavern. I ended up dropping the girls off at the Cleveland airport, where they knew there would be a 4-hour wait anyways, but they also had another 3-hour delay because apparently Alaska Airlines did not have enough personnel on the ground in Seattle to accept the plane. That made it for a long day. And for me though, it was a long drive to King of Prussia. Not so much the distance, but because it was getting dark and those windy roads and just I don't know, it felt like a very much taxing day than driving all the way across Iowa flat. I ended up eating dinner from leftovers in the box next to me, and then finally I arrived at J Cubes. It was great. In the day, and there I was. As I was crafting my road trip plan, I noticed in the revised route from Cleveland to King of Prussia, I was so very close to Gettysburg. Why not stop there before getting to J Cube's house? Well, I chatted with him, and since he had never seen it himself, made a plan for the next day after we rested up to go to Gettysburg. So day 11 would be a 2-hour road trip west, back along the route I came to reach Gettysburg. Okay, fine. We started off with breakfast at Bravo Bagel, which is a favorite of J Cubes. It's a really nice place, and the folks there were wonderful and great to talk to, and the breakfast bagel was delicious. What a good way to start a day and get ready for a 2-hour road trip to Gettysburg. Gettysburg is another bit of history that I've always wanted to see and add to my historical knowledge database. The national battlefield is spread out over a very wide area. The battle lasted 3 days from July 1st to 3rd, and on July 4th, it rained and Lee retreated. The date had to be meaningful to the Union since it was on July 4th. As I said, it was spread out over a wide area, and there's a lot of monuments all over the place dedicated and made by the people who represented the people who were there. In other words, every single state had a monument of someone who died there, and it was interesting because everywhere you went, there was a monument. Monument here, monument there, whatever it is, okay? The actual dedication of the Soldiers National Cemetery, the date itself was dependent upon another speaker, not President Lincoln. It happened in November. Lincoln spoke for 2 minutes, while the main address speaker for 2 hours. Oh, wow. We remember the 2-minute address, not the 2-hour one. But apparently, in lore and history, 2 hours wasn't a big deal back then when it came to dedications of cemeteries. There was a fantastic cyclorama that was made in 1883 before movies existed, and it was lovingly restored for us today. Cycloramas themselves are 360 degrees of cylindrical painting to immerse the viewer in the scene. The French artist, Paul Dominique Philippot, painted himself into the scene near a tree as his signature. After Gettysburg, we had lunch at Appalachian Brewing before heading back east. Pizza that night came from a favorite pizza joint that he loves, and then we also played board games for several hours while eating the pizza and rounding out the night. Day 12 kept us close, and just next door was Valley Forge National Historical Park. Visiting local J-Cube favorite places, checking out some brew pubs, and ending with a J-Cube board game night. We started off with breakfast at Chick-fil-A. Valley Forge National Historical Park was a much shorter drive than getting to Gettysburg, as it was almost literally next door to where J Cube lives. I thought I knew about Valley Forge from history classes, but I was wrong, and I learned a ton. By the time the American Army left Valley Forge, it was the 3rd largest city in the colonies, and besides, the supply train that followed the Army, women and children followed too, which meant the wives and children of the soldiers were there too. The Army was, of course, well-trained and ready to fight the regulars of the British Army. And when they left in the springtime, the American colonies had a treaty with France, and the British Army vacating Philadelphia for the Caribbean to protect their interests from the French. It was a global war, with fighting and rebelling happening all over the world, from that shot heard around the world. We visited Zawallen's Ice Cream after leaving Valley Forge, and then headed to Sly Fox for lunch. We walked around Phoenixville, which made a point of luring brew pubs since Philadelphia wasn't playing nice. You read Wikipedia, it's a former beaten-down mill town with a recent downtown revitalization plan that led to 10 craft breweries, a distillery, and wine tasting rooms. This shows you that a town can rebound and make historic downtowns come alive again. We had a beer at Rec Room by Conshohocken Brewing Company. We would have visited other places, but we had a hard stop, so time ran out. Remember, there were 2 anchor points in my road trip, the reunion itself, and of course the other was J-Cube's Tuesday night board game at Gamers Heaven. One absolute blast of a time, meeting other gamers, playing games, and just having a relaxing time. Now I see why everyone goes and why everyone touts it as being the place to go to, and I'm glad I went. Day 13. It was time to leave King of Prussia, say goodbye to J-Cube, and head to Lexington, Massachusetts. I left around 6:30 in the morning, which was earlier than the other days on the road trip, as I needed to get to Lexington before anything closed, which I found out was 5 p.m. So off I went on the road. From Pennsylvania to New Jersey to New York to Connecticut to Rhode Island. Providence, Rhode Island is where Brown University is located and where my niece Courtney is attending school and playing on their soccer team. We had lunch at Kebab and Curry Indian restaurant, and I dropped some good old Uncle Ken wisdom and advice. Driving north from Providence, I headed to Franklin, Massachusetts, where I lived 4th and 5th grade. The house looks great with a pool in the backyard and a different paint scheme. Franklin to Galeen to Warsaw to West Lafayette, Indiana. I captured my life from 4th grade through college on this road trip. Driving to Lexington, I checked into a hotel and then visited the Minuteman National Park, which closes at 5 p.m. and I got there at 4. Plenty of time to visit the museum, see the video, and purchase a t-shirt and magnet. The park itself was a bunch of trails that run from Lexington to Concord, providing lots of spots for plaques and contemplation, and if you're a good walker. I chose to drive around to see some of the sights. Driving to Lexington proper, I was hoping to find a brew pub and I was disappointed. But I did park along Lexington Battle Green and I walked around, and this is where the iconic Minuteman statue is located at. And I got a chance to see where the shot heard around the world was fired. I spent my evening at the hotel bar for some food and drink where I got to meet Jared, the bartender whose day job is a social worker, and Benson, the hotel front desk person on duty that day. It was fun talking with both of them and picking up some local flavor and stories. It was a nice way to end the day. Tomorrow is Boston, and the end of the road trip was coming up. The last day, day 14. I mean, technically day 15 is the day I flew out of Boston, but this is the last full day. I don't have a shirt that mimics. I didn't buy a Boston shirt. I didn't buy a shirt that reflects that. So I'm wearing my favorite shirt. Okay, the shirt you're going to see. After all, why not wear the favorite shirt of the trip, I think, right? I left Lexington about 8 a.m. Got gas first there, but since the rental car said, hey, make sure it's filled up if returning it. And based on the mileage, I figured I had no problem. From the hotel to the airport, I'm all good, okay? So there you go. The ride to Boston was eventful as I kept taking wrong turns. GPS was correct, but I didn't understand where to go. And so I kept getting lost along the way. And after all, Boston is an old city with an old layout. It makes me think how much the old European cities are. I'm used to West Coast cities laid out in a grid. Arriving in Boston, the hotel was not ready yet to have me check in, so I put my bags with them and I went off to Boston Commons for the Freedom Trail tour. Now, in the city, GPS is a bit wonky as I started going the wrong way. Then I got back on track, then off track, then on track, and oh my gosh, I walked too far this way, walked too far that way, and I'm grateful that I had time before the actual tour. I found that reloading the app helps me keep me focused. When I arrived at the starting point, I found out that my tour wasn't starting there, but at another place, which was the end of this tour. Like, oh my gosh, I got confused. What do I do? Well, they were very gracious. They said, hey, just come on by 11 o'clock. We'll take your receipt. You can do the tour with us at 11 o'clock. Oh, sounds good. So I had some time. I sat around and just waited for this tour to start. Walking around a little bit and seeing the sights. Had I known I was there, I could have seen Cheers Bar, but I didn't know that until later. A lot of flies were biting my legs, but okay, that's okay. I waited. The tour was fun. First stop on the tour was the cemetery where Sam Adams, John Hancock, and Paul Revere are buried. Then we on to Old South Meeting Hall, the old State House where the Boston Massacre happened, along where the Declaration of Independence was read. And finally into Faneuil Hall. Ending at Faneuil Hall put me right smack next to Sam Adams' tap room. So it wasn't the place that I was planning to visit, you know, Sam Adams' original place. I was grateful to be there at its location and it took advantage of its proximity. After lunch and beer at Sam Adams, I walked back to the hotel, check in, and freshen up. Now it was time to find Paul Revere's house and Old North Church. I went to the house and did not enter. I was there as a kid, and it wasn't really that fast thing anyways, okay? I tried walking to the Paul Revere statue, but I turned around and gave him a GPS and found myself at, Christopher Columbus Park and seeing Boston Harbor, which, by the way, helps me with my Puget Sound to Boston Harbor trip. I found my way to Old North Church and entered, and wow, it's a small church with lots of family cubicles there. And if you happen to be a poor or maybe a minority, you sat upstairs away from the main floor. Now, mind you, today we wouldn't mind so much, but back then it was very hot up there, okay? So you don't want to be there. North end of Boston has narrow streets, lots of small shops and residences. I saw something happening on Cooper Street as many street vendors were out and setting up for some kind of festival. While having an early dinner at A&B Kitchen, I looked up what could be happening in Boston and found the St. Anthony's Festival happening August 25th to 28th. And guess what? Today was 25th, making it day one. At 5 p.m., it was the start. So I decided, got to the hotel, freshen up, and out I go to see the sights. I went back at 5 p.m. to experience it all, and I was so giddy in participating. I was amazed at all that was going on and enjoying the festival. I mean, I'm not the guy from there. I'm not a Catholic, and so therefore I don't know about St. Anthony. What was cool was walking around, seeing all the vendors, seeing all the sites, following along the trail of the band and the people carrying the statue of St. Anthony, where people were putting donations onto it.
I'm in the north end of Boston. This is the St. Anthony's Festival. I stumbled upon it. Started today.
And at one point, I met this couple. I'm like, "Hey, guys, where you guys from? Chicago? Oh, this is amazing. I still am. Oh, we came here just for this. Like what? Because apparently in Chicago they have a smaller version of St. Anthony's, and they wanted to become to the legit St. Anthony's Festival. Which, by the way, there's a partner city over in Italy that also goes along with this. North end of Boston was a very much of an Italian neighborhood, and oh my gosh, what a wonderful place to be. I was just floored by it all. It was amazing. I went back to my hotel, packed, freshened. I don't know if I streamed or not. Maybe I did. Maybe I'll share this here. And then got ready for the next day, because next day was going to be an early morning flight. So that was Boston. That was Boston. Boston. Well, this is not quite the end, but it is the end. Day 15. Not really part of the road trip, but it is kind of, right? So early morning checkout from the hotel. A drive to Logan International Airport. The road trip officially ended when I dropped the car off at the airport. 4,200 miles. Wow. Technically, I-90 ends at the airport, though my view of I-90 is Puget Sound to Boston Harbor. Now, if you go to Wikipedia, Interstate 90 is an east-west transcontinental freeway and the longest interstate highway in the United States at 3,021 miles. Begins in Seattle, Washington, and travels through the Pacific Northwest, Mountain West, Great Plains, Midwest, Northeast, ending in Boston, Massachusetts. And if you want to get more technical, it begins at Washington State Route 519 and reaches the eastern terminus at Massachusetts Route 1A near Logan International Airport in Boston. My flight to Denver, and there I picked up a different rental car, drove to my mom's place in Estes Park, Colorado, and basically said goodbye to my road trip. Now, when I was sitting there visiting my mom, I wondered if this was also part of the road trip, and she said no. Matter of fact, it wasn't just a no, it was an emphatic no. No, this is not part of the road trip. This is something else. What a trip. What a trip. What a trip. Seattle to Boston. They go to Warsaw, Indiana for my high school reunion. 4,200 miles away. What a memory. What a story. What a milestone. What a bucket list check off. It is amazing. And along the way, visiting Aki, Ironheart, J-Cube, having my daughters flying in to Chicago, meeting my ex-roommate from Purdue, visiting national parks, milestones, history. What a trip. What a adventure. When I got back home, it felt weird because it was over. The years of planning, the years of setting up, the years of navigating, negotiating, whatever it was, getting ready for it. It was weird because it was over, officially over. And it's like kind of a letdown, but not let down. Memories that I'll treasure forever. And a video that I made, this one, to actually point out that I had a actual trip. When I was in Warsaw, Indiana at the 40th high school reunion, I sat there at one point and I was like, wow, I'm back in Warsaw after leaving almost 40 years ago. A whole lifetime ago. It just felt like, was I really ever in Indiana? Did I ever really live here? I mean, I have memories of it. I have pictures of it. But spending 1988 to now, 2022, in Washington, it feels like totally different world, totally different time, totally different person. And guess what? It probably was. While I gave my life to Christ at 16 at the church in Warsaw, it wasn't until 2006 that I really gave my life to Christ and been living a different life ever since. So you could say that my life now is definitely, well, obviously all of our lives are always based upon what we do before, but my life, definitely who I am today, was based on the past. And what a memory. And going back in time and seeing all that on this road trip, recovering a lot of places I've been as a kid and seeing things as a kid, I was like, wow, okay, there it was. So there you go. I don't know if anyone wants to see this video but me, but I did it for me mainly. If you're enjoying it and you happen to say hello, say hello to me, and thank you so much for bearing with us. So God bless you guys, and don't forget one thing, okay? The good news, the gospel means good news, literally good news, okay? Why? Because it's bad news. The bad news is, unfortunately, that we are prone to sin. We will sin. God loved us even though we do sin, and we deserve the wrath to come. But Jesus Christ, the Messiah, died on the cross for our sins, rose again on the third day from after being buried in death, okay? And he sits at the right hand of God the Father today, because he is part of the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost, one God, really three person. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Guess what? The time is at hand. The kingdom of God is here. Repent, give life to Christ, and know the good news. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Check out the further adventures of Kennethan by liking and subscribing and watching me live on twitch.tv/Kennethan. Nice bike.
Oh, thanks. Horrible place to bring it down here, though.
You ever been to Sturgis?
Not good. I've been like calling in, Daytona.
Okay. I happened to be by there for the end of the rally this year, so it was like amazing. So
Yeah, no, I'm gonna definitely go. I'm with a club, and we're all talking about doing it together,
do it.